Hi, I'd like to address the creationist gentleman whose video has recently gone viral. He's arguing that evolution isn't science. And his argument is that evolution cannot be science because evolution has not been directly observed by any one individual. Well, frankly, science is about inferring. It's about using observations to infer things that haven't been observed in totality by any one individual. So I think he's really misunderstood what science is. After all, science is about taking a whole lot of observations. In the case of evolution, we will be looking at things like the fossil evidence. We're looking at things like DNA evidence. We're looking at things like the similarities between different families of species and their geographic distribution. And the evidence is really strong. It was compiled in a great deal of detail by Charles Darwin, and obviously has been supplemented a lot since. But Darwin took many years before he dared bring this theory to the public. And he did so in such a way that it was so well documented that it has been accepted as a theory. And he thinks theory is a bad thing, but theory is actually a very high, in scientific terms, is a very high achievement. Theory of evolution is something equivalent to the theory of gravity. It's fact. It marshals a huge amount of evidence. It explains things that logically cannot be explained in other ways except by incredibly contrived means. It does so by the simplest means possible. And it actually has very powerful predictive implications, for example, in the evolution of bacteria in response to the development of antibiotics, which are borne out by fact. No rival theory has anything like that kind of power. So Darwin's theory has really been unchallenged as a piece of science for 150 years. It is established. Unless some absolutely amazing observation comes up, it is going to be established science. And I just don't see that happening. Could be wrong. Beyond that, let's look at this idea that something has to be observed directly in order to be seen as evidence. Well, I don't think this guy is really being honest about this. Let him put himself in the position of a juror in a trial. Consider, a murder trial. You've got a dead body, observed, blood, from which you can draw DNA evidence, fingerprint evidence, all pointing to one person who has no alibi and who does have a motive. Would he convict? I think he would. I think he'd probably go further than me. I think he'd probably sentence this person to death. I might be a little more cautious and say life imprisonment. But the point is, he would treat that as evidence. He would accept that. That is no stronger than the evidence for evolution. The only difference is the evidence for evolution challenges his religion. He then goes on to raise an old chestnut, the second law of thermodynamics. And the second law of thermodynamics, according to him, says we are incredibly complex. We are. Undeniably. Therefore, we must have come from something more complex, which must in turn have come from something more complex. Now, I don't think really he's thought this through. Just look at the title. The second law of thermodynamics is about temperature. What he says is complexity isn't complexity, it's heat. The hottest thing in the universe is the sun, or the hottest thing in the solar system is the sun. Heat flows out from it to the cooler areas throughout. Over time, the difference gets equated. Complexity, we've had a long time to think about this since the days of the laws of boiler conversion. Complexity is something different. Complexity is actually, it does relate to thermodynamics, but it's actually what goes on in that intermediate zone. It's about the rate of flow between the hottest thing and the coldest thing. Complex systems, complex objects are actually to do with the flow of energy. Yes, we require, obviously, a temperature difference, but the most complex thing in the solar system is probably us in many ways. It's our brains, and they exist at lukewarm temperatures. They require to be kept lukewarm by the existence of the sun, which is very hot, and the existence of the outer parts of the solar system, which are cold. So, we're a kind of temporary phenomenon while this flow is going on. But while this flow is going on, we can actually become more complex. We evolve. And there is nothing in that evolution which contradicts the law of thermodynamics. Nothing. Sorry, nothing. He's misunderstood the law of thermodynamics. He says complex must come from more complex. Well, no, it's not. It's about temperature. But if you follow that logic, okay, we must come from God. That solves nothing. Where does God come from? Super God? Where does super God come from? Duper God? Where does duper God come from? Super God? Where does super God come from? Duper super God? It gets you nowhere. That is an infinite loop of regress. It won't get you to any solution of anything. At some point you have to revert to magic. You follow his way, everything boils down to magic. He says evolution is about chance. Well, yes, it is about chance. It's about tossing dice. But the number of times we can observe the universe is hugely old. It's vast. What's more, there is a multiverse. There are lots and lots of other universes around. The dice have been chucked large numbers of times, so chance ceases to be chance. By contrast, he just puts everything down to magic. Science is about trying to explain things without magic. It's trying to explain how things which look magic aren't. Which is why, most stage magicians are actually atheists. Because they know full well. Now, beyond that, he says evolution is just a theory. Okay, he's not even prepared to produce a theory. He's not prepared to produce an account which is as testable. Is he actually prepared to defend every stage of the biblical process? Maybe he is. Maybe he believes everything on answersingenesis.com, which gives him problems because Genesis 1 contradicts Genesis 2. No question. And if he doesn't believe that, go to St. Paul, who actually says it's a pile of poo. I think the translation was dung. The Bible isn't about that. I'm not going to say the Bible doesn't have hugely powerful insights and things like this. I'm not saying the Bible doesn't have moral thoughts. The Bible doesn't have hugely powerful insights into the human condition. But as a work of science, no. I'm sorry, like a work of geography, you would get lost if you try to follow it. You get lost. And I think if he denies that, really, he's not being honest with himself. He knows that. And what do people when they're not honest with themselves? Well, what's the characteristic thing they exhibit? They exhibit anger. And you look at his tape. That's what you see. That's what you see. I don't think he believes what he means, what he's saying. I really don't think it. I think he just needs to chill out and accept. In 150 years, there has been no scientific